rest, babe, why can't you see? No hope in what's left of me. I had to tell you before I fall asleep. Sitting there on the edge, babe, not knowing which way to lean.
So right now, I got some feedback from one of my beta readers from chapter 12 through 27 for the book that I'm working on. So she annotates the document, like leaves comments in there for me, and then also kind of makes these bullet point lists of things she liked and didn't like on a chapter by chapter basis. So right now I just printed out that second document and I'm going through and I'm reading and highlighting the things that I like immediately agree with, like, oh, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good point. And then also kind of like leaving notes of things that like I still need to think about, but I might potentially want to make that change. I don't always print it out, but today just staring at the screen wasn't doing it for me. I got this back from her yesterday or the day before yesterday. I never jump straight in and make changes. Like I said, I like to highlight, mull things over, think about them. I would be curious if I like actually sat down to calculate what my rate would be of how much feedback like I actually end up implementing and how much I end up agreeing with. I feel like it's less than 50%. I think it's very important. Do not just blindly take notes and critiques and implement everything that someone else says. I have, did I say this in the last vlog? I think 3 or 4 other people also are reading the book, so I'm waiting to get their feedback returned. So I might end up adding things to the list that I want to change if I see like a trend pop up of like all of the readers are saying the same thing. So it is also very helpful to have many different opinions. So this is what we're working on. I did get a signed book order in this morning. It's been raining all morning and the sun finally came out. I've been kind of waiting because I want to walk it to the post office. So we might head out here pretty soon to try to squeeze in before the rain comes back. Also, today's Monday. I was supposed to start a new editing client today. Not a new client, repeat client, but new project for a copy edit. And I haven't heard from them. I emailed them on like Saturday to remind them. It's now noon. I've had interesting luck with editing clients so far this year. The vast majority of them have needed to reschedule. They haven't been ready in time or they've had to cancel, what have you. For the first like 3 months of the year, I went from fully booked to not working on a single project until April because no one ended up being ready for their date in time. I've never had this happen on this wide of a scale before, which is fine. This isn't a complaint, it's just an observation. So I'm hoping she'll get back to me and she'll actually end up using this spot for editing. But it's thrown off my whole schedule because my plan for today was like to get up, get a head start on the editing projects. It's the first day, focus on that all day, and I don't have the book to edit. So we're just kind of going with the flow and finding other things to do today. It's also tough though because with so many reschedulings and stuff now, if anybody else, if it comes up that they need to reschedule, I don't have any spots left open for the rest of the year. I'm fully booked for the rest of the year because so many people have had to move their dates back. So if anyone else runs into any problems, like I don't have the kind of flexibility that I used to. Did get rained on, so I went for the hat. I was kind of expecting it. But Dino's medicine finally got here. Still no word from my client. I might email her again to check in. Okay, good news. Emailed my client again. She sent over the book. That's what we're gonna work on probably for the rest of this afternoon. Mr. Dean, you haven't moved all day. I'm sorry. Oh, I can't even open my eyes. Also forgot to say, if you're a member of my Patreon, I just posted the podcast today and the vlog clip just went up yesterday. So rainy today. Happy Tuesday. So I started the day with client work. I like to divide down how many pages there are based on how many days until I want to get it done. I have a certain number of pages to do a day. So today I did 2 days worth of work. I like to get ahead first thing with the project in case things come up, you know. So we're done with client work for the day. I also got an email from another one of my beta readers with feedback from her. Then I finished going through this beta reader's comments. This one was for chapters like 12 through, I think I told you already, and then the beta reader who just got back to me was for 1 through 12. So the problem is I want to implement some of these changes before sending that next round to her. I need to send the next round also to her, and then I also want to implement the changes to the beginning. Don't look at my hair. But then I also kind of want to wait to hear back from some of my other readers for the beginning, and just to kind of see if there's some things that people agree on or disagree on. It's really interesting. I've had 3 people give me feedback on the beginning so far. Everyone else is in like different stages, and I've gotten such contradictory opinions, which happens. It's interesting. One of the questions that I ask, it's like, what are your favorite parts and least favorite parts, just to kind of get a feel for like what parts of the book people are enjoying, like what elements are people really responding to. And I have gotten absolutely opposite answers of people saying, I can't remember exactly what chapter it was, chapter 8 for example, being person A's favorite, chapter 8 being person B's least favorite, and like things like that. So don't really know what to do with that. It's also hard because I know this is going to be the first book in a series. They're interconnected standalones, so the future books are going to be following different characters. So I'm trying to like subtly introduce those characters in book 1 and like give them enough information to like hopefully pique readers' interest and like just set it up just enough for them to go on and have later books. So, but without making it like super, like too much in book 1, you know? They're also standalones, so it can't be like information that someone would have to know in case they don't read book 1 first. And yeah, it's a weird mix because I'm planning at least 4 books, so I've been like planting seeds for 3 other characters that way. And so some of the comments that I get is kind of like on those sections where I'm like maybe focusing more on a side character than people would expect because people don't know that that character is going to get a book, if that makes sense. So I don't know. I don't really know how I want to approach that. I don't know if I need to scale that back or I don't know. I think I'd like to wait to get at least one more opinion and see. I don't know. At this point, there's not going to be a majority because it's 4 people. I think I might just need to kind of sit with this for a while and not necessarily wait to see what the majority says. I need to like really see what I feel about it. So I think our next step is going to be implementing changes to the middle section so I can get this middle section to the beta reader who's giving me feedback. This is getting complicated. To beta reader B, and I need to send the final section to beta reader A, and we'll start there. Also, I asked you guys in the previous vlog if you had any questions to leave them in the comments so we could have some things to chat about. I don't want to do like a really long sit down Q&A section where I answer them all at once, so we'll just like do a few here and there and sprinkle them in. I actually saw a question I think 2 vlogs ago that my answer would be a little too long to put in a comment. Let's see if I can find it. Here it is. Okay, because I've been talking about sending my book to critique partners and beta readers and stuff. Do you copyright all of your works before sending them to beta readers and critique partners? So copyright, you own the copyrights to your work whether you officially file it or not. However, so when you're asking do you copyright, I'm assuming you're meaning like sending it in and paying the fee to get the official copyright. That is not something you want to do with a draft version of your book, because as you revise, as you make changes, if you copyrighted an earlier version, like that no longer applies once you change the book. So if you're in the middle of doing edits and beta readers and stuff, you need to wait till the very end to copyright the completed published version. I know a lot of newer writers, or I hear this pretty often, kind of hesitant to give their writing to people. They're worried about people stealing and things like that. I think it's fair to, you know, proceed with caution and to really vet the people that you're giving your work to, but 99% of the time those are kind of like new writer fears, and it's really not something to worry about. Max, are you talking? And then I'll just answer one more right now because it's easy. I'm gonna kind of not answer it. How did you come up with your series name for the Anti-Virginity Pact and the Anti-Relationship Year? The series is called The Pact. And how do you come up with your titles in general? Are they usually easy or harder for you? I'm not going to answer this just because we've already talked about this in a previous vlog. This one I will link it down below, and I'll also put the timestamp for like when I start talking about the titles, because we go in and talk about it for like 10 minutes in that vlog. But as far as how I came up with this series name for the Anti-Virginity Pact and the Anti-Relationship Year, to be honest, I don't remember putting much thought into that at all. It's just something, the Anti-Virginity Pact is called that because there's a thing in the book called the Anti-Virginity Pact, and the characters throughout the book just refer to it as the Pact. So, and then those two books, they're like the series I'm doing now, they're interconnected standalones. They follow different characters, and the two characters that it follows are the ones who made the Pact. So it just, like, that was the thing that connected the two characters together. So that was the thing that connected the series. So it just made sense to me. Check out the other blog if you want more on book titles in general. I'll answer some more later. I have a lot to get organized and figure out for myself for what we're gonna do today. Hey, I was trying to film some TikToks. I am so out of practice. I haven't been like creating and consistently posting content in at least like 4 months. I was on such a roll with it for such a long time, and then I just completely fell off, and now I feel like out of my depth and like I have no idea what I'm doing anymore. I think I got comfortable once I found like a couple of things that worked, just like doing those, and then they stopped working, and now I'm like, anyway, I'm gonna answer some questions. This one's gonna be kind of annoying because I'm also not gonna answer it. I'd love to hear more about the marketing advertising you're doing now. I've only done social media marketing so far, and I'm considering dipping my toe into Instagram ads because I see them a lot now, but I haven't heard any authors talk about their ROI yet. The reason why I'm not gonna get super into this is actually because we've been talking about this like at length on my Patreon page for the past couple of months, which I realize is annoying to be like, it's over there. But we've talked about it in podcasts. I've made like full in-depth self-pub 101 videos about it. But in general, I have been not doing pretty much anything. I really need to get back into it. I've been relying on my running ads right now. So I do have Facebook, Instagram, and Amazon ads running, and they've been doing really well in the background to keep me afloat. They've just been kind of passive. Someone posted a video about my book in December, I want to say, like another influencer, and it did really well, and I ended up having my best sales months ever for like December, January, February, and like into March. And so I'm just now like coming to the end of that wave, so now it's like time for me to like get back into high gear. But I will say I've been kind of passively riding that wave for the last several months, and I can tell that the wave is fizzling out now. Obviously it's like drastic, and you see the sales go down. So right now I haven't been posting consistently anywhere. The only thing I've really been doing is I've had those ads that have just been running in the background. So I feel like that's like the only thing that's bringing in sales for me right now, but that's gonna have to change soon. Someone asked about the tropes in the new series and if I'm ready to share anything. I don't want to get like too into it because I am gonna do like a whole process of like revealing the title, revealing the tropes, revealing the cover, and all that kind of stuff leading up to a release. Although I have talked about this in the past, so if you've been around, like I have mentioned it here and there. These are obviously contemporary romances. They are way more on the small town side than I've ever done before. It's like small beach town kind of vibes. Yeah, the first book I don't mind telling you because I've already talked about it so much is a older brother's best friend romance, also kind of like forbidden romance. And then the other tropes for the future couples actually took me by such a surprise. Like I was not planning to ever write some of these tropes, like ever. So I'm not going to reveal those yet, but they surprised me. Hopefully they'll surprise you. I've got some very different tropes for me coming up in the future books. I'm curious, what were the most outrageous or funny criticisms that you've ever received? Also, I'm curious, what were the most positive ones that touched your heart? I think we've talked about this in some previous vlogs before too, so you have seen some of the like ridiculous things people have said. What I find the most ridiculous is when, I don't know how this happens because I know I'm not the only author this happens to. Elizabeth Gilbert talks about it in Big Magic, I think, having readers come up and like reference something in your book that did not happen. And so those are the ones that are super ridiculous to me when I hear people like say things about my books that they either liked or they didn't like that is not in the book. Like, it's not like, oh, it's up for interpretation. It is factually right or wrong, not in the book. This happens, like, I'm gonna say super often, but fairly often, where I'll have like a complaint on a book about something that straight up is not in the book. So it's just ridiculous to me because I don't understand it at all. I can think of the first one that like comes to the top of my head is so like I don't know why this one is like top of mind, but I had someone complaining about, sorry, this is gonna be a little like not safe for work, the like anal sex scene in a book. That didn't happen. That has never happened in any of my books. I have never written a scene like that. And I had this whole like negative review talking about that in this book, and I was like, what book was she reading? Like, that was not in this book. So that was really bizarre. It's also kind of frustrating on some cases when people will like talk about your books and misinformation spreads really easily, because I've seen other people like say something that's factually incorrect about the book in like a video, and then you look at the comments of people being like, oh, I was gonna read that book, but now I'm glad I know that that's in it because now I'm not gonna read it. And that thing that made them decide not to read it actually isn't in the book at all. I've seen that happen, and that's really frustrating because I feel like from the author's point of view, like I don't want to step over into like that reader space and be like, well actually, but that's definitely frustrating to see sometimes. And I don't think people do it maliciously. It's oftentimes from people who haven't read the book and they're just like repeating something that they heard, or they DNF'd the book and they like were assuming that's where it was going. It's usually people who don't know what they were talking about, and then other people just hear that and they don't look into it themselves. That's really frustrating to see. So the most outrageous things I see are things that are not actually in the books. Although some other ones that we talked about in some recent vlogs, the Marionettes series follows a witch, and that's available in the first line of the blurb that the main character is a witch. I've had people complain and say they DNF'd the book and then give it 1 star because they don't like reading about witches. Don't know why they picked up the book in the first place. Gotten 1 star because it wasn't enough like Twilight, like all kinds of weird shit. But the most positive ones are usually things like, well, from like the video standpoint, I've had people tell me like I'm the reason they quit their job and they decided to pursue writing. I'm the reason that they decided to major in creative writing in college after everyone told them it was a bad idea, and like I gave them the confidence to pursue their dreams, or I inspire people to start their own channels, like anything like that. Something that seems to have like genuinely affected someone's life, that is so meaningful to hear, to feel like I like actually hopefully made like a positive impact on someone. When it comes to my books, this is probably more relevant in terms of my contemporary books, the more like hard-hitting kind of subject matters. And it's usually the more controversial books that I tend to get a little more flack for. So the contrast to that, when I see someone who actually went through that in their life and they don't get to see that like really represented very often in fiction. I've had people tell me like this is the first time I've ever seen myself represented and it meant a lot to me. Those are really meaningful. The one that like I'm really thinking about is the Anti-Virginity Pact, because I've gotten a lot of flack for that book, and going off of the most outrageous things I see are people being like, that doesn't happen, like that's not how that would work, like this author doesn't know what they're talking about, that's not how that works, when actually a lot of things in that book are based off of real things that have happened. And a lot of people read that book, and if it was outside of their experience, they were just like, oh, it doesn't ever happen like that. So then having other readers come in and be like, that did happen for me, this meant a lot for me to read, those are really meaningful and validating. So the last question that we'll answer for now, I also work from home for myself, and some days I struggle with self-motivation. Any tips? Girl, me too. You guys only see the good days for me, because those are the days that I vlog. I have been struggling with this actually a lot lately, so I am right there with you. I kind of like fall into slumps and then I get myself back out of it, and I fall. So you're definitely not alone. I think it's really normal for people in this situation to struggle with this, at least I do. How I help with self-motivation, it kind of depends on where I'm at in my slump cycle. Sometimes getting out of the house is helpful. I'll go work in a coffee shop, or I'll go work in like one of the amenities in my apartment building, or even just like changing locations. I find I love working in that chair. If you follow me on Instagram, you see a lot of my updates from that chair. But I can also, if I stay there too long, it gets dangerous. So moving over here to my desk, or working at my coffee table, or working at my counter or something. Moving helps. Moving location helps, but also like moving helps. I have a little stepper I can put under my desk and like make a walking, or make like a standing desk. I also have a little walking pad I can slide under and make like a walking desk. So moving while I'm working sometimes helps me out a lot. Also like getting ready for the day. I don't do that most days now, and the days that I do, I feel like that kind of gives me that extra kick if I need it. And honestly, a little bit of positive stress helps me out so much. So setting deadlines or like being held accountable by someone other than me helps probably the most, which is tough for me. I wish I could just like show up for myself the way that I show up for other people. Like if I know someone else is counting on me, I'm gonna get it done. If I'm the only one counting on me, it's iffy. So if I like know I told my beta readers I'm gonna give you the book on this day, I'm gonna get it done on that day. If I know I have an editing client, I'm gonna get it done. So I just kind of need to make these deadlines for myself that also involve other people, and that really keeps me on track. So like booking an editor, booking a cover designer, setting a release date, there's a fine balance here because a little too much of this gets me a little too stressed and then I just like shut down completely. But making deadlines for myself helps out a lot. And actually vlogging helps myself a lot because if I am doing nothing all week and then I look back at a vlog of that, like that doesn't feel great. So that's obviously really particular to me, but if you can find something similar, maybe you just like keep a log and like a journal of everything you did that day and you can start to see if you're actually using your time wisely, or maybe even just like making a vlog even if you don't post them, if they're just for you to look back on, can help keep you accountable. I know a lot of people do that kind of stuff with like TikToks where they'll like film each day of something if they're doing like a challenge or something to hold themselves accountable. And then people do that with like Instagram accounts too, and they set it to private so no one else can see. I've heard people doing that for like their weight loss journeys and stuff where they like post an update just for themselves every day. That little extra like step keeps them accountable. I feel like I kind of went off on some tangents, but hopefully that was helpful. Anyways, it's 3 o'clock. Haven't made any changes to Gracie's book yet. We're gonna jump straight into it. I have quite a few things highlighted, but realistically, I think a lot of these are gonna be small changes, like tweaking a sentence here and there. So it won't take me as long as I'm like building it up to be. So we're just gonna dive in and start checking them off. Actually, there are quite a few things that like I wanna improve definitely for like publishing quality, but I don't think they will matter as much for the beta reader experience, like adding more description of this setting, and the timeline is an issue in this book as it is in every single book for me. Getting Gracie's thoughts a little bit more in this situation, like these tiny little things I'm not going to prioritize because I really just want to tweak the main things in these chapters so I can send them off to my next beta reader. So any like small continuity things or like writing things we're just gonna skip over for now. I'm just gonna find the ones that I feel like would make the biggest impact because I would like to just get these next chapters off to my beta reader today. Anything that like really affects the plot or characterization, I think I'm gonna focus on.
No.